are still in the part where the author speaks about concession for not attending Jama'ah and Jum'ah prayers. So from the translated book, we are at page 112. And in our last lesson, we spoke about a person who hope for forgiveness from any punishments that are judged for him. So there are certain laws in Islam. There are certain laws in Islam where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the person who is harmed the option whether to forgive or not forgive. For example, in Islam, we have the law of al-qisas. Al-qisas. If a person, for example, is killed and the family member forgives the killer, if the family member forgives the killer, then it is accepted from them. It is accepted from them. So there are any instances where punishments can be forgiven. In Islam, punishments can be forgiven. But there are certain punishments that cannot be forgiven. And if a person is caught, he has to be punished. For example, when it comes to the capital punishments, the hudud. Because these are laws that are related to the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when it comes to the law related by fellow men, so there is this notion that if a person forgives you might be forgiven and escape the punishment. So the author mentioned here وَرَجَاءُ عَفْوِ عُقُوبَةٍ عَلَيْهِ. A person he says that if I go out from my house, I'll be caught. But if I delay, there is a possibility that I might be forgiven. I might be forgiven. So this is a concession for him not to perform the prayers in congregation. So I hope it is clear, inshallah. I mentioned this in the last lesson in last week. This is just a revision, just in case some of you are asking about how come he can be forgiven by punishment. Certain punishments cannot be forgiven. Certain punishments can be forgiven. So what the author is basically referring here is the punishments that can be forgiven. The punishments that can be forgiven. And then he mentioned وَمُدَافَعَةُ الْحَدَثِ مَعَ سَعَةِ الْوَقْتِ. وَمُدَافَعَةُ الْحَدَثِ مَعَ سَعَةِ الْوَقْتِ. يعني مُدَافَعَةُ الْحَدَث يعني a person for example is in a state where he has to go to the toilet for example, or he is in a state where he needs to release himself. He needs to release himself, and there is a lot of time. So it is permissible for him to to go into the toilet, and even if he comes into a situation where he doesn't have the time to perform the Jum'ah and Jama'ah. So this is a concession, that's what we mentioned. Tamam. وَفَقْدُ لُبْسٍ لَائِقٍ. The next thing the author mentioned that a person doesn't possess the clothes that are suitable for him. The clothes that are suitable for him. This is also a concession of not attending Jama'ah and Jum'ah. Yani for example, scholar, for example, and ulama, usually he comes into the mosque and he wears a certain type of clothing, the clothing of the scholars. But on that day he doesn't have that kind of clothing, and he only have a t-shirt and pants, for example. So this kind of clothing is not appropriate for him. Yani in terms of the situation of the society, that people will look at him in a manner that tarnish his reputation. So Islam gave this concession for him not to attend Jama'ah and Jum'ah, because he doesn't have the clothing that are suitable for his for his situation. Likewise, the prime minister of a country, prime minister of the country, and he wants to go to the mosque, but he doesn't have the proper clothing. He doesn't have the proper clothing for certain reasons. He is wearing for example, he has only singlet and pants for example. So a person like the prime minister cannot be coming to the mosque with this kind of clothing, and people will make fun of him. People will, like nowadays, people will put it into social media. People will take any picture. Nowadays, and it is easier and for us to imagine. People might post in social media, and people might criticize, say, how come this person, Fulan bin Fulan, and he comes into the mosque and with this kind of clothing, what kind of person and is this and that, and so on and so forth. So if that is the case, then it is a concession and for him and not to perform the Jama'ah and Jum'ah. وغلبة النوم وشدة الريح بالليل. غلبة النوم يعني if a person يعني in a state any of a person any overslept, it is what you call it, something any that is forgiven. If a person is too sleepy, and for example, that he doesn't have the ability to perform, to go to the masjid, to perform any jama'ah, any prayers, that is also one of the concession. وشدة الريح بالليل, يعني a lot any of this wind. شدة الريح meaning strong winds, strong winds any at night, strong winds any at night, and it can be dangerous any in certain any places, and a person any fear for his life, or because any of the difficulty any to come into the masjid, for example, it is a concession of not coming for jama'ah. وشدة الجوع والعطش, a person any is in a state of extreme hunger, extreme thirst. This becomes any reason for him not to attend also, so that he can eat and drink. He can eat and drink. Wal-bardi wal-wahal, likewise in a situation of bard and too cold, especially in winters in certain countries, it's very difficult to walk in the streets because situation is too cold. Wal-wahal, a lot of mud. There is a flood, for example, the flood is subsided, and there is a lot of mud where if you wrongly step you enter into the mud. Wal-har, too hot, in terms of summer, in the extreme part of summer, at the time of Dhuhr, that is also a concession of not attending. Wasafarul rufqa, a person is traveling with a group, and the group wants to go. So he said that if I pray at the masjid, my group might leave me, my caravan might leave me, my tour group might leave me. Then it becomes a concession of him not to attend, to attend the prayers. Because why? Out of the fear that he will be left out. He will left out by the group that is traveling. So here the author mentioned so many of these concessions. Number one is when a person is in a state of what? He is in a state of having to release himself. Number two, he doesn't have the proper clothing for a person of reputation. And then ghalabatun naum, a person overslept or too sleepy. Shiddatul rih bil layl, strong winds at night. Shiddatul ju' wal atash, extreme hunger and thirst. Wal barad wal wahal, extreme coldness, mud, heat. Wasafar ar-rufqa, the fear of being left out. And then he mentioned wa aklu muntin nayyin in lam yumkinhu izalatuhu. This is also a concession that a person find himself eating something that is very foul smell, in terms of the smell, very bad smell, and he doesn't have the capacity to remove that smell. It is better for him not to perform the Jum'ah in Jama'ah. This is a concession, because so that he doesn't harm any others in terms of the smell, or it doesn't cause disturbance to people praying in the Jama'ah. Wa taqtiru suqufil aswaq wal zalzala. Wa taqtiru suqufil aswaq. Taqtir suqufil aswaq. Last time, when a person, for example, is walking in the markets, so there will be this water that will drop from the saqf. Saqf in Arabic is a rooftop, the rooftop. Water that falls from the rooftop. So sometimes it contains najis, sometimes it contains filth, sometimes it contains things that is dirty. Sometimes it contains things that is dirty. This is also a concession for him not to attend the prayers. Well, zalzala, zalzala is basically earthquakes. What do you call it? Earthquakes, natural disasters, are concessions for people not to attend the Jama'ah and Jum'ah at the masjid. So I hope it is clear, inshallah. We have completed this fasl. The next fasl the author mentioned shurutu sihatil qudwah. So before this, he spoke about the concessions of not attending Jummah and Jama'ah. So now he's going to speak about the conditions of the validity of the congregational prayers. So he mentioned number one, an la ya'lama butlana salati imamihi. That a person does not know the invalidity of the imam's prayer. Bihadasin aw ghayrihi. So either by the hadath or other than the hadath. For example, a person found out that the imam doesn't have wudu. The imam doesn't have any ablution. So it is not permissible for the ma'mum to follow the imam, because now the ma'mum understand that the imam has no ablution, thus the prayer of the imam is not valid. If the prayer of the imam is not valid, the prayer of the ma'mum is also not valid. So this is an example bi hadathin. The imam is having hadath, whether hadath that is minor or major. Or ghayrihi, for example, he has najasa. A person knows that there is najis at the body of the imam, and this najis is not forgiven in prayers. So it is not permissible for him to follow the imam. Likewise, if the aura of the imam can be seen. Sometimes we pray, for example, a person becomes an imam, when he makes the sujood, the aura can be seen from behind. We know that his prayer is not valid. Then we cannot perform the prayer. Then he mentioned وَأَنْ لَا يَعْتَقِدَ بُطْلَانَهَا كَمُجْتَهِدَيْنِ اخْتَلَفَا فِي الْقِبْلَةِ أَوْ إِنَاءَيْنِ أَوْ ثَوْبَيْنِ. The next thing he mentioned that the ma'mum must not be convinced that the prayer of the imam is invalidated due to ijtihad, due to the difference in ijtihad. So he gave an example. For example, we are praying with a person, he is the imam, but we differ with him in terms of the qibla. We differ with him in terms of the qibla, because he is saying the qibla in this direction, but we also do ijtihad, and we are saying the qibla is the other direction. But if both of them pray with each other, then the prayer of the ma'mum who differs of the imam is not valid. Who differs of the imam is not valid. Likewise, there are two ina. The author mentioned two ina, two places of water. One of them is najis. So the imam takes wudu from the first. The ma'mum believes that the first that is najis. So now the ma'mum cannot pray behind the imam. Why? Because the ma'mum is convinced that the ablution of the imam is not valid. The ablution of the imam is not valid. Just like if the ma'mum is convinced that the qibla of the imam is not valid, it is not permissible for the ma'mum to pray behind the imam. Aw sawbain. There are two clothes, and one of it is najis. The imam chose the first, the ma'mum chose the second. To the ma'mum, the first contains najis. To the imam, the second contains najis. In this situation, both of them cannot perform jama'ah together. Both of them cannot perform jama'ah together. Why? Because they differ in terms of ijtihad when it comes to the validity of the prayers, in terms of water, in terms of clothes, in terms of filth, in terms of qibla. So whenever there are differences between the imam and the ma'mum, when it comes into ijtihad, and this gives effect to the validity of prayer, then the prayer of the ma'mum is not valid. Then he mentioned kahanafiyin alimahu tarka fardan wa an la ya'taqida wujuba qada'iha kamuqimin tayammama. Then he mentioned something that I think we mentioned before this, when it comes to the imam who is a Hanafi. Imam who is a Hanafi, alimahu taraka fardan, the ma'mum Shafi, and the ma'mum knows that the imam does not perform one of the integrals in your prayers. The imam does not perform one of the integrals of prayers. So to the ma'mum, the prayer is not valid. To the ma'mum, the prayer is the prayer is not valid. So now here he gives the example of kahanafiyin alimahu taraka fardan. So this is an example. So likewise, a person whom the ma'mum knows that does not perform a particular integral. For example, the ma'mum knows that this particular person he doesn't recite Surah Al-Fatiha. He does not recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Now the ma'mum knows this, then the prayer of the ma'mum is not valid, because to him the prayer of the imam the prayer of the imam is not valid. When it comes to the Hanafis, and we mentioned that our scholars are inclined to the opinion that it is better to avoid saying this, because what you call it, not to cause any friction between us and other jama'ah who are following the Hanafi madhab. But here the author gave this an example for us to look into this matter and to understand in terms of how the fuqaha is thinking. So basically the principle here is that when you know that the imam does not perform a particular integral that you believe it to be an integral, and the imam does not perform. When it comes to the people who are abiding in the same madhab, then automatically we say that the prayer of the imam is not invalid. But here the author mentioned the Kahanafiyin. This is something that the commenters of Muqaddimah Hadramiyah explain, where they mentioned that if it can lead to fitna, and if it can lead to disunity, there is no harm of following imam who is Hanafi, even though we know that he does not perform a particular integral in the prayer that we abide to. وأن لا يعتقد وجوب قضائها كمقيم تيمم. Sometimes when we pray behind an imam, sometimes the imam must make up for the prayer. So here it is not permissible for us to follow this imam. It is not permissible to follow a person who has to make up the prayer. So he gave the example. He said, كمقيم تيمم. Muqim, a person who lives in a particular country, and he does tayammum. Now the question we ask, is it compulsory upon him to make up for the prayer or not compulsory? If a muqim and he does tayammum, is it compulsory for him to make up for the prayer? Yes, it is compulsory for him to make up for the prayer. Why? Because normally there is water. Muqim of a country, normally there is water. So he is doing tayammum in a place that usually there is water. So that in this, we say it is compulsory upon him to make up for the prayer. But it is different if a musafir and he does tayammum. Musafir and he does tayammum, for example, in a place that usually there is no water. So if we become the ma'mum of this musafir, it no need for us to make up our prayer is valid, because why? Because it is not compulsory upon the imam to make up for the prayer. He is doing tayammum in a place that usually there is water. But muqim, when he does tayammum, we say it is wajib for the imam to make up for the prayer. So if this kind of prayer, wajib for the imam to make up, now it is not permissible for us to pray behind him. It is not permissible for us to pray behind him. So this is the thing that we have to understand. Sometimes we find a person, for example, having bandage, wearing any bandage, and he wants to perform the prayers. And if this particular person, and if we say that it is wajib for him to make up the prayer, we cannot pray behind him. So the question is qada wajib upon him or not wajib upon him? If qada is wajib upon him, he cannot become imam. So there is a principle in fiqh that says that we can pray behind a person as long as his prayer is valid. Valid here meaning there is no need for him to make up. Then only our prayers will be valid. وَأَنْ لَا يَكُونَ مَأْمُومًا وَلَا مَشْكُوكًا فِيهِ. So a ma'mum cannot pray behind a ma'mum. This is what the author is saying. وَأَنْ لَا يَكُونَ مَأْمُومًا. We have to make sure that the person whom we are praying behind is not a ma'mum. He must be the imam, not a ma'mum. But if it turns out to be a ma'mum, then our prayer is not valid. وَلَا مَشْكُوكًا فِيهِ. Sometimes we have doubt whether this person imam or ma'mum, then khalas, we cannot pray behind him, because we are not certain whether this person is an imam or this person is ma'mum. Maybe some of you is asking how can this be? this can happen, and if a person, for example, imagine and you are praying and behind it is someone, and he is standing at the door, or he's standing somewhere that you cannot see in front of him, you only see him. So you might be thinking that he is praying alone, but actually he is praying behind an imam that you did not see in front of him. So this can happen. A person might be thinking that this person is alone, but actually he is a ma'mum to an imam. So if that is the case, then we cannot follow him. And if you have doubt, then also we cannot follow him. This is what the author mentioned. وَلَا مَشْكُوكًا فِيهِ وَأُمِّيًا وَهُوَ مَنْ لَا يُحْسِنْ حَرْفًا مِنَ الْفَاتِحَةِ. It is not permissible for a ma'mum to follow an ummi. Ummi here is not a person who cannot read and write. Ummi here, the author explained. He said, وَهُوَ مَنْ لَا يُحْسِنُ حَرْفًا مِنَ الْفَاتِحَةِ. Yani a person cannot recite one letter of the Fatiha. Even one letter of the Fatiha, this person is an ummi. This person is an ummi. So a ma'mum who can recite perfectly cannot follow any imam who cannot recite any of the letters of the Fatiha, because this person is considered to be an ummi. Illa idha iqtada bihi misluhu. Unless the person who follows him are the same like him, all of them are ummi. Wa an la yaqtadiya ar-rajulu bil mar'ah. And it is not permissible that a man becomes the ma'mum of a woman. Woman cannot become the imam for men. Aw salla khalfahu thumma tabayyana kufruhu. Or a person prays behind a person, behind this imam, and then after that it is clear that this imam is kafir and is not a Muslim, and the prayer is not valid. Aw jununuhu. The imam actually is majnun, and is a mad person. The prayer is not valid. Aw kaunuhu imra'atan. He thought that the imam is a male, but turn out the imam is a female. Aw ma'muman. Or turn out that the imam is a ma'mum. Aw ummiyan. Or the imam is an ummi. A'adaha. So it is compulsory upon him to pray back again. A'adaha meaning the prayer is not valid. Then he has to perform the prayers again. Illa in bana muhdithan aw junuban. But there is an exception. The author is mentioned. Unless if the imam is a muhdith, after prayers we found out that he doesn't have wudu, or he is in a state of janaba, then our prayer is still valid. Because why? This is forgiven. This is forgiven for the ma'mum. Because usually we do not know whether imam has wudu or no wudu, or imam in the state of janaba or not state of janaba, or alayhi najasatun khafiyah, or dhahira. There is a najasa, but the najasa is hidden. We cannot see any of the najis. After that, we found out this is what you call it, also forgiven. Aw qa'iman li raka'atin za'idah. Or the imam qa'iman li raka'atin za'idatin. The imam goes to the additional raka'ah, and we do not know that the imam goes up to the additional raka'ah. Our prayer is still valid. Our prayer is still valid. For example, the imam is praying Zuhur 5 raka'ah. We came in late and we do not know. So we go up together with the imam to the 5th raka'ah. Because if you know you cannot follow him, your prayer will become invalid. But because you do not know, then it is forgiven. If you follow any imam goes up to the 5th raka'ah. Walau nasiya hadasa imamihi summa tazakkarahu a'ada. But if he forgot that the imam doesn't have wudu, then after that he remembered, then he has to pray again. Now this is a situation before prayers he knows this imam has no wudu, but then he forgot that the imam has no wudu. The imam becomes the imam and he prays behind the imam. Then he remembered that the imam has no wudu. Now the prayer of the ma'mum is not. The prayer of the ma'mum is not valid, because this is not forgiven, because he knows in the first place that the imam doesn't have any wudu. So alhamdulillah, we have reached into the fasl of the validity of jama'ah. We will continue next week inshallah. There is some mistakes in the translation, and I believe when it comes to when the author mentioned in page 112. وَمُدَافَعَةُ الْحَدَثِ مَعَ سَعَةِ الْوَقْتِ. So there is something missing there. It is only said despite plenty of time. Certain the first part and is not there. وَمُدَافَعَةُ الْحَدَث, any meaning to what? Yani Mudafa'atul Hadas, and in this situation, and is a person wants any to urinate any, for example, or to release any himself. So he is trying any his best to control himself. This is called Mudafa'atul Hadath. So this is not mentioned. Just think not. The author is speaking any about a situation where a person and he wants any to release any himself. He wants to go to the toilet. But he says that if I go any to the toilet, I might miss the Jama'ah. So in this situation, and we say go to the toilet and it is forgiven. This is a concession. Because why? It is feared any that he might urinate any in the masjid or in the place in your prayer, or he will not any attain any khushu. He will not any attain any khushu. So this is not completely translated. Yeah, I think that's about it. And I think about ummi, and as what we mentioned, al-ummi, illiterate here meaning a person who cannot recite one letter of the Fatiha. So inshallah, we will stop here. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.